to infinity and beyond.
What's up, everyone? It's Roger and James here from Infinity and Beyond, your weekly Disney video game podcast. On this week's show, we're going to be discussing kind of a bit of an evergreen subject. We're going to be discussing Star Wars video games, the history, what we liked, what we haven't liked, kind of all kinds of bits and pieces, really, of just Star Wars related games. Now, so James, you actually, this was the thing of like you said off camera there, was basically you've been a big lover of Star Wars games since you were a kid.
Oh yeah, I could talk about Star Wars games for hours and hours and hours, but we're not going to,
yeah, he's got
because people
minutes,
would,
folks.
yeah, because people would get bored, but I would not.
So where did you start with your video games? Because I've got the list up in front of me, going right back to 1982, when I was a wee baby.
I was born in 1982, so no, I was not playing video games at the time. The first game that I remember playing, Star Wars game that I remember playing, was Star Wars XWing back in 1993, and I think I did in fact get it when it came out. And I played that game pretty much all the way from, 93, I would have been 11, so from when I was 11 till I graduated high school, XWing and then its subsequent titles were pretty much my game. I've probably sunk literally 1,000 hours into that series.
Yeah, see, I was more Super Star Wars on the SNES. That was kind of, I think I remember renting that, because that was the thing back then. I used to go into the Blockbuster or my local corner shop and just rent a video game every week. So that was it's kind of quite funny, like when I look at like history of video games of that era. It's like I didn't have a lot of games, but I just rented for years of just used like, well, I played that. Every game I played for like a weekend or two, but never really got anywhere. Just played everything, but didn't really get very far into any game. I don't think I barely ever completed any game from the SNES or Mega Drive or NES era. Everything was just play for a few levels, die, restart, die, restart, die, restart.
Yeah. In fairness, you're not supposed to beat games from that era. They were supposed to go on forever. If you beat them, it was after hundreds of hours of work.
Yeah. So I was they re-released Super Star Wars on PlayStation 4 and stuff recently. So that was kind of a reminder, because it was really hard, and it's still really hard now. And you had a few other ones around there. It's kind of odd, because I don't really remember Star Wars games as much when I was a kid. It's kind of one of those weird things of, I remember they were more being, obviously big Star Wars fan growing up, but I never really remember the games being that kind. I don't know, they didn't really capture me what Star Wars was about at that particular time in the 90s. Like we said, we had the SNES era with like Empire Strikes Back, and we also had Return of the Jedi. So there was kind of like a kind of a crossover from all of that. But like you said, you then got into, I remember like Star Wars Arcade on the 32X. I remember playing that one. And then you just had, like you said, a couple of Star Wars sort of X-Wing, TIE Fighter, those kind of games on PC. And I didn't have a PC powerful enough to play them. And that was why I didn't play them.
As a matter of fact, I did not have a PC powerful enough to play them at first. And I remember I bought Star Wars X-Wing, and I was so excited to play it. And I think we had to upgrade my computer's RAM from... It was either 1 meg to 2 or 2 megs to 4, and that was a huge deal and very expensive. My parents were not that thrilled, but it kept me busy for many hours, so it worked out. Yeah. But yeah, I just remember that 1 meg to 2 megs was massive.
Yeah. See, it's that era. I had a PC, but it was not. It wasn't. They were actually floppy disks. They were proper floppy disks. And the only reason I got that PC was because my uncle was going for a divorce, and he didn't want his wife to have it. Basically, the only reason that I got a PC when I was like, and there was no internet, and no games could be played on it, because I think she brought the wrong brand, because there was that thing of, if you picked the wrong company, you were, at that age, it was fine, didn't really matter. But so the whole TIE Fighter X-Wing era, I didn't do, because my PC just wasn't powerful enough.
See, I was primarily X-Wing. I actually did not play TIE Fighter all that much, and then it wasn't until '97 when X-Wing versus TIE Fighter came out that I really got into another one. But in between that time, there were a lot of other games that came out. Most of them not really worth talking about.
Yeah, I do remember, I'm sure, I've just looked here on this list, there was 2 games, Shadow of the Empire and Rogue Squadron, on the N64. Now, I do remember, now I'm guessing it was Rogue Squadron because that would have been when I was at university, when I spent my first university loan on a new N64 in some game, because they were like £65 for a game. They were so expensive, those games on the N64. And yeah, basically I spent, I think, half of my student loan on N64 and the games. And I do remember playing that game, Rogues. I think that almost to me feels like one of the very first big games that I remember playing constantly. And I mean, I would have been like 18 at the time.
Oh yeah, Rogue Squadron was fantastic, and Shadows of the Empire was the spiritual predecessor to it. And I remember playing the Hoth level on that over and over and over again. That was like the second level of the game, and it was very much Rogue Squadron-esque. And then Rogue Squadron became a great series unto itself as well. On into Rogue Leader and the GameCube and the Jedi Starfighter years after that. You know what? Say what you will about their movie tie-ins and some of these other ones that we'll talk about in a bit, but their Starfighter games, X-Wing, TIE Fighter, X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, Rogue Squadron, Rogue Leader, etc., have been almost exclusively fantastic. If you like the genre, obviously, if you don't like the genre, you're not going to enjoy them, but I can't pick out a single one that I wouldn't be like, yeah, I would totally just pick that up right now and play it. In fact, I own X-Wing TIE Fighter, X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, and X-Wing Alliance on Steam, and I will randomly boot them up.
I do. I think I also had Rogue Squadron 2 on the GameCube. I'm pretty sure I had that one as well. But looking at this list, there is, as you said, things got a little bit bumpy around the 90s, almost like there was a massive movie out which kind of rebooted that whole thing. Episode 1, Phantom Menace, Episode 1, Jedi Power Battles, Demolition, Obi-Wan's Adventures, Battle for Naboo, of which I've got them all. I have picked them all up recently. I still haven't got around to playing them. And then we kind of got into the PlayStation 2 era where a lot of them have been re-released. Starfighter, Obi-Wan, you had Racer Revenge, Jedi Starfighter. There's like a big, and then we got into Clone Wars, the new Droid Army, Bounty Hunters. There was a whole era where obviously it just went prequels and Attack of the Clones. And I'm going to be honest, I tapped out for the whole. I did these were completely not on a radar at that point in my life. 20 odd years old, a load of, to be honest, probably fairly badly reviewed. Because that was still in the magazine days of, just generally, these were bad movie ports that I just don't remember having any interest in at the time.
Most of these games, from what I remember, are absolutely not worth touching, but there are a couple of exceptions in here. The Nintendo 64 pod racing game, for instance, was generally very well received and is still remembered favorably. There was the Jedi Starfighter games, which I'd already mentioned. But then also in here is another little series based on the Dark Forces games, which was started as a first-person shooter way back in the day.
I'm just thinking actually. Dark Forces, you say that. I think I remember, because I must have got I think I had a PC then, and I do remember maybe it was a demo or the shareware as it was back then.
Yeah, shareware.
I think I must have brought a PC magazine or something like that with the shareware on it, and I do remember playing, because that name just jump out, that I do remember playing it.
Yep, it was very Doom-esque. You fought stormtroopers and Dianagas and all sorts of fun stuff, and it was a very difficult game, but a lot of fun. And then it went on to have Dark Forces 2, which is also called Jedi Knight. And now this is where it gets confusing, because now Dark Forces 2 Jedi Knight is the second one, and then they dropped Dark Forces from the title, so now you get Jedi Knight 2, which is actually Dark Forces 3, and then it continues on, and okay, now it's Jedi Knight Jedi Academy, and now we're going to drop the Jedi Knight part, and now it's Jedi Academy, and it's like, and then they dropped it from that point. But almost every single one of those titles is generally well remembered, especially the Jedi Academy ones, I think.
Yeah.
So,
generally, I think as well, it seems to be like anything that wasn't kind of based around particular movies seemed to do a little bit better. They're just taking the concept of what Star Wars is and doing that differently seemed to work very well for that era.
right. And yeah, most of these games are utterly forgettable. No need to go back and play them at all. But then we get to 2003.
Yeah.
And 2003 is when things start to turn around. That was a major year for Star Wars video games.
Yeah, see, I'm going to be honest, I've never played Knights of the Old Republic. And for me, actually, it's a game that I want to play. I know it's really good. I keep toying with the idea of doing the Old Republic on the PC. But I just know my PC, I just don't like PC gaming. I like console gaming. If this thing comes on backwards compatibility, I will be all over it. And this is the big thing, I think, is a lot of people are hoping that it will eventually join on there so people can try it out. But they're also making a third, they're supposed to be making a third game. Though that's taking a while.
They are, those are what the rumors are. I don't think they've ever officially announced the third one, but everyone assumes they're making it. The first one and the second one, both really good games. The first one was originally on the Xbox. It got ported to Windows later.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be a pretty major effort for them to update these for the modern consoles, but if they did, I think there are a lot of players who would love to sit down and play these games.
It's kind of like the one game that keeps coming up as kind of being thrown around with backwards compatibility. But when people talk about great Star Wars game, that one always seems to be... I'm aware of that one being a good game, and I've never played it. That's how the name of it has kind of got bigger over the years.
Yeah, and... for good reason. You know, it is now 13 years old, and there are parts of it that are dated, that there are systems that don't work quite as well as they're used to, but it holds up pretty darn well. It's a fun game. You really do feel like a Jedi in it, or if you want, a Sith. You can absolutely be a Sith in the game. Now, you mentioned the Old Republic, which is the MMO game. 2003 also had Star Wars Galaxies. The first Star Wars MMO, which I have to admit I never played, but that lasted for quite some time. That was a very popular game. Yeah,
I remember around that time as well, I think we had Star Wars Battlefront on PlayStation 2 and Xbox. I am pretty sure I jumped into I'm pretty sure I had the PlayStation 2 version of that, or rented it, or did I have... Obviously, we have the new Battlefront now, but I do distinctly remember kind of messing about with it a little bit around that era. But again, you know, we had loads of, you know, they were on so many different platforms of different games, of Game Boy Advance games. You know, there was just a lot. I think there's so much sort of filler going on in between everything that you didn't, you know, you. I think at that time, so many of us would have just lumped all the Star Wars bad titles in, and you know. There was a lot of competition at all times.
Oh yeah, but this is when they started to turn things around. But finding those good titles mixed in there were pretty difficult. And I think it was really Battlefront 2 that kind of turned it around, because people still play Battlefront 2.
Yeah.
There are people who prefer it to the re-release, and I don't blame them. There's a lot going on in that game. But looking in the same era here, you've also got Star Wars Republic Commando, which I've only played like the first hour of, but it's a very well-received first-person shooter. And then, of course, a game that is near and dear to both of us, 2005, Lego Star Wars, the original.
See, this is the funny thing, because I obviously they went into number 1, number 2, and number 3, different versions of it. I still have the class. I've got the one on the Xbox. I still haven't got around to playing. See, I didn't play this game. I didn't play them when they that age. I didn't get into these like Lego games until much later, when they sort of started to kind of become mainstream. Because essentially, I mean, at that point, Star Wars pretty much saved Lego at that when they tied up for these franchises. That's where I think Lego basically started realizing they're going to go into franchise mode. Star Wars was the big thing, and these video games, you know, you go back and play these now, and they feel pretty bad compared to what we're playing.
Right.
When you're playing like Force Awakens or Lego Dimensions, you can see how they have evolved. Because while you put down one of these Lego games and you go, oh, it hasn't changed too much. You go back and play something from, I mean, I've picked up these games recently, and you've played some of the older ones, you realize how much they have moved on since, and this is why 10 years on, these Lego games are so crisp, because they've got their mode down quite well now.
Oh yeah, the original Lego Star Wars, the video game, was based on the prequels, and it's a very simplistic game.
Yeah.
Like there's, you don't have to worry so much about character abilities. You had either Jedi or not Jedi or droid, and that was really your three character types, and having all three of those, you could counter just about any obstacle in the game. But it was so much fun. And I remember when the demo became available, because back then they were like, oh, we're going to release demos in advance of games. Not so much these days. But
they're the only company still doing it.
They are the only company still doing it, practically. Though Square does it sometimes as well. They've released the Final Fantasy 15 and the World of Final Fantasy demos. And I played the one level that they released for the Lego Star Wars demo over and over and over again, and I bought it the day it came out, and it was great.
Yeah, but they definitely kind of jumped, I think, recently. And then we're going to jump into 2008 Force Unleashed, which I'm going to be honest, I only played last year. Actually, last year or this year, when it became backwards compatible. I played it,
right.
And I've played through the first one. I've got the second one on my Xbox ready to go. Again, my back catalogue at the minute is just so big of games to play through. I picked it up in the sale on May the 4th. And I picked up both of them in the sale on May. Actually, to be fair, I think on May the 4th, I bought about 6 Star Wars games digitally. And it was that, that thing where you buy too many games at once and you then buy another game later, and they just start stacking up on your drive.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, that was, see, I played right through number 1, but didn't get around to playing number 2. So, but yeah, and in fairness, put that in now, that hasn't dated that badly.
It was a simple formula. It's a straight up hack and slash game with a lightsaber and force powers, and it's a formula you don't really need to evolve very much. It was not a fantastic game. It definitely kind of met some lukewarm reviews, but now if you can pick it up for $5 or $10, or both of them for $20, it's absolutely worth it. You'll get about 10 hours between the two games, and you'll have fun doing it. You just go around slaughtering stormtroopers. Yeah,
especially, this is the thing. I remember there was a game, and I'm just trying to think of which Star Wars game it was, where I think it might have been Force Unleashed or something like that around this time. I remember having it at home. I remember there had been a cheat code where you could turn whoever you were playing as basically into an unstoppable beast. It might have even been a PC game or something, I think. And I just remember just loving the fact of just walking in and just killing everything in sight, and them not even, basically you're just evil Superman at that point, where everything is just bang. And I do remember doing that with a Star Wars game, and I think it might have been Force Unleashed the first time it came out. It might have even been one of the other Battlefronts or something like that, of just being, and I remember just playing that for a weekend on the God mode or something like that, and just loving just destroying
it. It is definitely a game that makes you feel powerful. And if that is the type of game that you enjoy, and I admit I do, most of the games I play, I'm all about just being like, I am going to wreck stuff here. I am just going to come in here and I'm going to destroy things. This is the game for that. Both of them are. Unleashed and Unleashed 2. They're backwards compatible with the Xbox 360. They're available on PC. I'm sure that they want to get these remastered in the pipeline. I think they could easily do a $20 collection for the two of these. And I'd buy it. I'd absolutely buy it.
It then kind of, like you say, looking at this list, we then got back into kind of some Jedi Alliance, lightsaber duels, Republic Heroes. We kind of got into a bit of a dodgy year or two with some more cheap tie-ins, which just didn't really kind of do a lot.
Well, you can see one of the things, back in 2008, the Wii was super popular, and they were trying to capitalize it because obviously Wiimote lightsaber, it writes itself, right? But They never quite got it. Never quite got it right. And that includes the Kinect game, which also came down the road as well, which was a mess.
Yeah, I mean, and then we kind of, as you said, we got more Force Unleashed, more Battlefront, more Lego Star Wars. They started at this point. You can see that there was kind of, something going on, and then, like we said, they take a massive break. Kinetic Star Wars and Lego, there is nothing until Disney Infinity 3.0. There's nothing in 3, there's nothing in 4. Almost like the company got brought out and the entire division got rechanged.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think it's because when you look at the history of the video games, you're looking at multiple titles every year. And then you suddenly hit a point where the company got brought out and basically there was nothing for, nearly, 3, 4, there was over 3 years with no Star Wars titles.
Right. And then, of course, when we do get a Star Wars title, it's actually Disney Infinity, which is not strictly speaking a Star Wars title, although at least the first 2 play sets were really good. The third, maybe not so much. No. But interestingly enough, the list that I'm looking at doesn't have Battlefront listed on it.
Yeah, this list doesn't have that one on there as well, which I still think is one of the best shooting games that I've played. Graphically, it looks the best I've ever played. It
looks amazing.
It looks amazing, and for me as a casual player, that's actually like what I like from the shooter. Shame it didn't have a single player campaign because I'm playing through like for a few years of playing Call of Duties, Ghost Recon's, Doom. I've dabbled with first person shooters since the very beginning, but I'm not an online player. I'm not good enough to be in there. I like just a single player campaign mode. Once I've finished the campaign, that's the end of the game for me because I've never really had that interest in the online side of things. So I am hoping in Battlefront 2 they'll have a proper campaign, which seems to be what they have learned. Also, like you say, Lego Force Awakens, arguably I would say probably the best Lego game out there. It's far superior than anything that we've seen before. They added new modes, new gameplay. It seemed like to me like you can see how the Star Wars games have come along, and just in terms of Lego games. So the more recent ones, you can really see like they really kind of cotton down and go, right, okay, let's get this sorted. And that's been pretty much it for the last couple of years. But the next couple of years, upcoming years, we're looking at some various coming out that we know nothing about. Yeah.
So
there was a load of also pinball stuff as well that came out around 2013, 2014. I'm going to be honest, wouldn't be at all surprised if we see a collection of that come out, like we've done with the Marvel game. Reissue them, get them back out into the wild. I mean, there's also been a ton of like mobile games. It's funny how like you said, you got Yoda one, then you got a Force collection, a Star Wars Commander, Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, Star Wars Uprising, Star Wars Rebels. There's a big flip that changed over around that like 2013, where the mobile games started kicking up even more so. Well, like Angry Birds Star Wars, I mean, that was a lot of fun as well. I remember playing that I love that game on my Android phone.
It is still the only Angry Birds game that I've ever played. Ever, pretty much. And yeah, they do have the mobile market, and as we're talking about this, they just announced the Battlegrounds game for Star Wars. Probably by the time this airs, there'll be more information about that. But other than that, they've been slowly updating the Old Republic with expansions. The Knight of the Eternal Throne is out. We had the Fallen Empire last year, and then they've done basically an expansion every year since 2013. But yeah, there's not much else in there. And for me, we started this out with me being like, yes, Star Wars X-Wing and Rogue Squadron and stuff like that. There hasn't been a proper spaceship game, not counting a couple that were on the PlayStation Portable and the 3DS, or the DS, since 2003. EA, Activision, whoever, it's time. We need an X-Wing game, and now is the perfect time.
Yeah, I mean, I remember back when I think way back in like the old days of playing. There was an arcade game that I remember playing, where you sat in a pod and you used to kind of shoot at space and stuff. But that was too expensive. That was like £1 a go. I could go on.
Oh, yeah.
I could go on X-Men and Simpsons and Ninja Turtles at 10p a go, and have a lot more. Or Daytona Racing for 50p, and Star Wars one was way too expensive.
I know it was a special treat, but it was fun because you were in it, and it had the little like privacy curtain, so you're playing by yourself, and it had the ray vector graphics and. Yeah, I remember that game. That was so much fun.
And every time you walk past it, C-3PO would like speak out, and it was always that thing of, oh, it's a great game. And then when you did go on it, because you didn't have the experience, because you didn't play it very often, you generally would die really quick. And generally, I think that must have been like with grandparents, when grandparents took you to the arcade. It was like, wait.
Yes, they've got some money to spend. We're going to play the good games.
Yeah. It's like, when we're at the beach, like Dad would give me a quid, because this is the thing, because we would go to the beach because my dad was like involved with life saving of training them. Where I'd go to the beach, 3-4 times a week, and the arcade was right opposite the club hut, so it was like, here's £1 each every night. So I would spend 3-4 nights a week at least in the arcade. So I do have that arcade. I didn't go to a lot of arcades, but I went to the one arcade a lot. So I kind of, those kind of arcade era, Street Fighter 2, Daytona USA, all that, the scrolling beat 'em ups. Those were massive games at that time because they were so much better than what we could play at home.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's completely flipped now. Of course, your home console, home PC is so much more powerful than the arcade systems. But there will really never be anything that quite replicates that sitting down in the pod or playing Afterburner or something like that, and having the like quality joystick in your hand and swinging around like that.
It's going to be interesting what I think, like the Star Wars Battlefront VR thing. I think this is where things are going to maybe jump into that thing. I'm just looking here at some other games that, over the years. Apparently they made some cameos in Indiana Jones 2, Lego.
I mean, they teased Indiana Jones in Lego Star Wars 2, I think it was. Yeah. He was one of the characters you could unlock, and then, of course, they made some of the Star Wars characters unlockable in Lego Indiana Jones. They don't do that anymore.
No. I see it. I'm waiting for Lego Indiana Jones to become backwards compatible, because I've got the two. I picked up the PS2 version, because every time I go to the store, I usually try and pick something up for them. And Soul Calibur 4, with their playable characters, again, I picked that up on the Xbox 360 for backwards compatibility, because I checked the list and realised I misread the number, and it was Soul Calibur 2 and not number 4, which was backwards compatible. So I got the disc sat there doing nothing. So it was in a few other ones. Go ahead. I was going to say, you could even unlock Darth Maul in Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and Jango Fett in Pro Skater 4.
Okay, I did not know about that one. I've never played the game.
Well, I must say I played a lot of skating games because my brother was a massive skater, so he would buy the Tony Hawk. It's one of those things that I think back then, you had limited access. So if your brother brought a game, you would play it just because it was when he was out, because you didn't have access to lots and lots of games like you do now. So you just play anything.
And nowadays, I mean, you throw an iPad in front of somebody and they've got access to thousands of free games. They don't have to pay for them. I want to step back for a second, though. You were talking about Soul Calibur. That is one of the major areas that there's a serious deficiency in Star Wars games. There have been a couple over the years. I can't think of any since.
There was that fighting. There was that fighting one way back in the
PlayStation.
Yeah.
What was that called? I don't even think it's on this list, to be honest.
Yeah, I did see it. It was.
Oh, there's Power Battles, which was kind of a fighting game.
Yeah, Masters of the Tensi Kizi.
Yeah, that was it.
It's bit butchered that.
I mean, it's got little umlauts and stuff over the letters, so it's kind of screwy to pronounce. between that and the Jedi Power Battles, that's really it for fighting games.
Yeah.
And you would think, especially now we've got Rogue One coming out. We've got lots of Jedi you can pick from. You got Kanan Jarrus, Ezra Bridger, Darth Vader, Darth Maul, Count Dooku, etc. You can go on for
Yeah.
plus bounty hunters like Boba Fett, characters like Han Solo. You would think they could make a really good fighting game out of this, and I'd be a little bit surprised if that wasn't something Disney was exploring.
Yeah,
was not.
Yeah, see, I'm gonna see that fighting era, like obviously like Street Fighter 2, Mortal Kombat, Soul Calibur, Tekken, Marvel superheroes. I love those games in that era. I brought all of those, and I brought their sequels and stuff. You know, the PlayStation 1 era had some epic fighting games. You know, I remember buying Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat on my Mega Drive. You know, that whole era, I was playing those kind of games. So, again, this was the thing of that era of, you know, Star Wars games just, for so long, there's been some really good ones. But I think they've been so much muddled in. And I can't help but feel like, probably exactly what I'm thinking of, there was so much rubbish that it kind of, if there was a good one, it'd be easily overlooked because you just saw a line of just bad title. And that era, and most people just avoided movie tie-ins. They were aimed at kids.
And they were often thrown together at the last minute with a production time of like 5 months, and there was a reason to skip them because they were terrible. Almost exclusively, and all the Star Wars ones were absolutely terrible.
Because there's that kind of thing as well, like looking through there, you know, there is some good ones. There are some noticeably good ones, and most of these are available on Steam and stuff to buy now, so you can jump in. Especially, I'd say, May the 4th, and also, I think usually like Force Friday in September, you know, you usually get big discounts on all these games. It's a great time to jump in and pick up old titles. I've done it for like 2-3 years now. Of every like Force. May the 4th, I'd pick up some games in the PlayStation Store or the Xbox. You know, there's just a lot of games out there. Some of them are great, some of them are not. I do feel like, as far as console goes, you know, EA have got a license. We know we've got one new major title coming every year for the next 3-4 years. They've got mobile teams working on different titles. I think we are about to hit like a good era of Star Wars games.
Or it could be really, really bad. But yes, I have faith. Battlefront 2, if they can get a good single-player component like you were talking about, I'm all over that. We've got the director from Uncharted working on a game, which
I think is going to be epic.
That's a heck of a lineage there. Rumored Knights of the Old Republic 3, or at the very least some sort of action RPG in the works. Another shooting game from the guys who made Titanfall. It looks like a bright future. Obviously, we won't know until they actually come out.
Nah.
But, heck, you know what? Even if those ones don't succeed all that well, there's a lot of games on this list that I would love to see ports and remasters of.
I mean, they did it last year? Yeah, last year they brought out like 3 or 4 of the PlayStation 2 stuff and I picked them all up and I played through them all a little bit. I'm going to be honest, I have realised as I've played some of these PlayStation 2, and this is what I probably did. I played a couple of these Star Wars, like Jedi thing and Bounty Hunter, and just realised it might be on the PlayStation 4, but they still suck because they're just too old and they haven't been up. Whereas you put like Force Awakens on Xbox One from the 360 generation, and that I played through that. You know, I spent a week in the evenings playing through the main game, enjoyed it, and I had to be honest, you could have just said to me, "Oh, it's just come out." Other than the graphics being a little bit less, it was fun and I enjoyed it. Whereas the PlayStation 2 games, for those kind of ones, they don't quite work the same.
Yeah, and this is the issue that we're going to see, not just with Star Wars games in general, but with remasters and ports, which we are going to get a ton of over the next couple of years, is if you're looking at older games, you really need to, at a minimum, update the control schemes, maps, basic stuff that we don't really even think about now, but, there are, minimum basics for UI and
Yeah.
controllability and all this stuff. And if they don't update those, people aren't going to play them because why fight the controls?
Yeah. I mean, I think as well as like, I think Steam seems to be the best. They seem to be the one place they seem to be dumping a lot. It was like earlier this year, when they put the Rogue Squadrons and the N64 games all on the PC, all on Steam and stuff. It was quite a random, like, just putting them on there because they weren't like even really like PC games to begin with. They just bringing over those old titles, which I think is good. I still think it's good that some of the history of these games aren't being forgotten and they are being made available for everyone. And a lot of these like mobile games won't be. So it's good to have history of some of this stuff being available if you really wanted to play it.
Yeah, and I think we'll start to see some of the other games popping up there too. I know a lot of the Jedi Knight games are already on Steam, but I think there might be one or two that are missing. Most of the games that you would want to play, most of the ones that you'd want to recommend are available on Steam or Good Old Games or, other various digital outlets. The question will be whether or not they decide to port them over to Xbox One and PlayStation 4 and the Nintendo Switch, which I guess we need to start including on the list as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be honest, it wouldn't surprise me if we saw a Lego kind of remastered like they've done with Harry Potter. Wouldn't be at all surprised if they do that. It would be, it would make sense, but then it depends what they're doing. But yeah, lots of stuff on that list, lots of different genres. We've got shooting, flying, Lego, sort of lots of different bits and pieces. But like I said, there's a few games that have jumped out to me over the years, but I definitely don't consider myself to be like someone that's loved. I don't have that franchise connection with Star Wars for video games the same way I do, whereas I've played Marvel and Disney games constantly. I remember having Marvel and Star Wars, Marvel and Disney games on all of those different devices. With Star Wars, like I said, I think it was just the fact there was too much rubbish to kind of, and and there was a rumor that just went around, and games were expensive, and you just missed them.
It was not worth taking a risk on these games. I mean, you can spend $60 or $70 on Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, the Trilogy Arcade, Star Wars Demolition. I don't even remember Star Wars Demolition.
Oh, yeah, I think it was like Destruction Derby. And the thing is as well, I'm going to be honest as well, I think for me was we'd hit an era of video games unlike anything around that. Probably, I would say, like, for me, 98 to onwards was once I had. Probably I was a bit early, probably 96 when I kind of started when I had a job. I started spending more money on video games, and there was a lot of competition out there. Lots of big titles. The Grand Theft Autos, your Ghost Recons, your WWE. I was spending money on so many other different titles, fighting games, and you did go for the top tier. I think that was the difference of that era. I remember, like I say, if one of these titles came out in the same few weeks as Grand Theft Auto or Splinter Cell or, those or Assassin's Creed or anything like different like that, you would wipe out the whole. And the thing, I tended to be drawn to those big AAA titles.
And it was a different time period. Also, we have kind of a rose-colored glasses of that time period. We're like, oh, that's when Metal Gear Solid was coming out and Crash Bandicoot and all these games. For every game that developed into a franchise, every game that we remember fondly, there were probably 100 that were just utter trash. Yeah. And maybe one or two that deserved to become a franchise, but they just got lost in the shuffle and disappeared.
But no, it's definitely, for me, it was that kind of thing. Like I said, the SNES and Mega Drive era was renting. I think PlayStation 1 was still kind of renting period. PlayStation 2 onwards, I was just pure top quality games because the video game, this renting sort of dried up. But yeah, that whole era of just playing massive titles. And I don't think, and like I said, Star Wars didn't come close. Marvel were just knocking them out differently, but for some reason, when we went through the Marvel one recently, so many more games I played. It was compared to this list.
Yeah. But, nowadays, the future of gaming appears to be heading in the VR realm. To a degree. It's never going to fully supplant regular gaming, at least not in the foreseeable future. But you know what? Star Wars is one of those franchises that really could take advantage of that.
Yeah.
The appeal of being a Jedi or a Sith or a starfighter pilot is pretty universal.
Yeah, I think.
I mean, there'll always be some people who are silly and don't like that, but that's okay. More for the rest of us.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of Star Wars stuff. But I'd love to know what you guys have played. What were your favourites? What were your highlights? What ones did you think were terrible? Let us know in the comments or get in touch with us in different ways. As per usual, guys, thank you very much for watching. Be sure to check out our Infinity and Beyond Facebook group. You can also check us out on Patreon as well, /DisKingdom, where all of that helps support paying for basically the audio versions and kind of just keeping all the software up and running for all of our doing our shows and stuff. Where can they find you? Over on the interwebs?
Somewhere. At the time we're recording this, I'm kind of taking a sabbatical from Twitter, so I'm not really checking that. I don't know if that'll be accurate by the time this airs. I do have my webpage at vagabondpeak.com, but it has not been updated in a little while.
Yeah. Yes.
I am waiting for someone in the comments to tell us exactly why Masters of Teras Kasai is the greatest game of all time. Prove it. Prove it to us.
Yes.
Prove it.
Well, on that note, guys, thank you very much for watching. Be sure to check out DisKingdom.com, and I shall see you guys in a later video. So, laters, and may the Force be with you.
And also with you.
Nanu.
That's wrong on so many levels. It's not... But not... No, Mork and Mindy, no.
Anyway, guys, we shall see you guys soon.